I stood in the driveway with my suitcase at my feet, staring at the closed door. My father's voice still echoed in my ears, loud enough that Mrs. Patterson next door had stopped watering her plants to watch. "You don't belong here anymore, Elena. You think you're better than this family? Then leave." My hands trembled as I gripped my car keys. This wasn't supposed to happen tonight. I'd come home to celebrate my promotion, Assistant Director of Compliance at Henderson Financial Group. I'd worked 6 years for this moment. But instead of champagne and congratulations, I got accusations and a locked door. The porch light flickered off. My father's shadow moved past the living room window. My stepbrother Marcus peeked through the curtains, then quickly disappeared. Nobody came back outside. I loaded my suitcase into my Honda, my promotion certificate still sitting on the passenger seat in its frame. The glass had cracked when Dad threw my bag down the steps. I touched the splintered corner and felt something break inside me too. As I backed out of the driveway, I saw Dad watching from the upstairs window. His face showed no regret. This wasn't an emotional outburst. This was planned, and I needed to figure out why. I parked 3 blocks away, engine running, hands shaking on the steering wheel. The celebration dinner I'd planned felt like a lifetime ago. My phone buzzed with texts from coworkers asking where I disappeared to. I couldn't answer them. I couldn't explain what I didn't understand. Then it hit me. The documents. That afternoon, Dad had spread papers across the kitchen table. "Just sign these, Elena. Family helps family." His construction company, Morales Building Solutions, was expanding. He needed my signature for partnership paperwork. But something felt wrong. The stack was thick, the language dense. I'd asked if I could review them overnight. His face had darkened. "You don't trust your own father?" I'd tried to explain that my job required me to read everything carefully. That financial documents deserved attention. He'd swept the papers into his briefcase and walked away without another word. Now, sitting in my car, I realized that hesitation had cost me my home. Dad didn't kick me out because I was disrespectful. He kicked me out because I wouldn't sign blindly. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Marcus. "Dad's really mad. Maybe apologize." I stared at that message for a long time before driving to the nearest motel. The sun set and smelled like old carpet and disinfectant. I sat on the scratchy bedspread with my laptop, pulling up the email Dad had sent earlier. He'd attached digital copies for my records. I opened the first document, then the second, then the third. My stomach dropped. These weren't simple partnership agreements. Buried in the legal language were personal liability clauses. If Morales Building Solutions defaulted on loans, my assets would cover the debt. My credit would guarantee his loans. My savings account was listed as collateral. I scrolled faster, my finance training kicking in. Every clause was designed to shift risk onto me while keeping Dad protected. If his company failed, and based on these desperate terms, failure seemed likely, I would be financially destroyed. I checked the signature lines. My name was pre-filled on 17 different pages. He'd planned this for weeks, maybe months. The promotion celebration dinner was just bait to get me relaxed and grateful enough to sign without reading. I saved every file to 3 different drives. Then I started searching public records for Morales Building Solutions. What I found made my hands go numb. I barely slept. By 6 a.m., I was back online, digging deeper. Dad's company had missed payments on 3 different projects. Liens were filed against 2 properties. Suppliers were complaining on contractor forums about unpaid invoices. Then I saw the Facebook post. Marcus grinning in my old bedroom, captioned, "New room upgrade. Dad says loyalty matters more than pride." He'd moved into my space within 24 hours. The dresser I'd saved 3 months to buy sat behind him. My bookshelf still held my college textbooks, but Marcus's gaming posters already covered my walls. I scrolled through the comments. Relatives I hadn't spoken to in months were praising Marcus for being a real son and putting family first. Aunt Gloria wrote, "Some people forget where they come from." Nobody asked why I'd left. Nobody questioned the timing. Dad had already controlled the narrative. My phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. Miss Morales? This is Patterson Legal Services. We're calling about documents filed with your name attached to Morales Building Solutions. Are you aware? I hung up and immediately called my bank, then my credit card company. Then I pulled my credit report. Dad had tried. Oh, he'd tried. There were inquiries against my name, loan applications started, but not completed. Everything stopped at the signature verification stage. If I had signed those papers, I'd already be drowning. The next 11 months moved like cold water. I found a small apartment across town, 40 minutes from my old neighborhood. I didn't tell Dad my address. I didn't tell Marcus. I blocked Aunt Gloria and anyone else who judged me in comment sections. At work, I threw myself into audits and compliance reviews. My boss noticed. Elena, you're doing excellent work. But are you okay? I wasn't. But I said yes anyway. I lived on a tight budget, rebuilding my savings and strengthening my emergency fund. Every morning, I checked my credit report. Every night, I reviewed my accounts. Trust was a luxury I couldn't afford anymore. I stopped going to family events. Thanksgiving passed. Christmas passed. My birthday came and went with no text from Dad, just a generic message from Marcus asking if I was done being stubborn. I watched their social media from a distance. Dad posted photos of new equipment and big projects. Marcus posted selfies from expensive restaurants. Everything looked successful. Everything looked fine. But I knew better. I'd learned to read between the lines. And I was listening when nobody thought I mattered anymore. Then in March, my phone rang from a number I didn't recognize. Against my better judgment, I answered. Elena? This is Troy Hammond. I used to work for your father. We need to talk. Troy and I met at a coffee shop downtown, far from anywhere Dad might go. He looked tired, worn down. His hands shook slightly when he stirred his coffee. I left Morales Building Solutions 2 months ago, he said quietly. But before I did, I saw things. Bad things. He slid a folder across the table. Inside were copies of invoices, emails, and contracts. My name appeared on several documents, but the signatures weren't mine. They were close, but not quite right. He forged these? I whispered. Troy nodded. Tried to. Most banks caught it during verification. But he's been moving money between shell companies, hiding debts, double-billing clients. The whole thing's falling apart. I flipped through the pages, my heart racing. There was a loan application with my social security number. A business account opened in my name. Purchase orders signed E. Morales in handwriting that wasn't quite mine. Why are you showing me this? Troy looked me straight in the eye. Because if you'd signed those papers last year, you'd be on the hook for all of it. Federal investigators are already asking questions. I thought you should know. I drove home in a daze. That night, I made copies of everything Troy gave me and stored them in a safety deposit box. I'd come within one signature of absolute disaster. I couldn't stop thinking about the house. The place I'd grown up, the home where Mom had cooked Sunday dinners before she died. The house Dad kicked me out of like I was nothing. On a rainy Tuesday, I pulled property records for the address. What I found made me sit back hard in my chair. The house wasn't paid off. Not even close. Dad had refinanced 4 times in 6 years. Each time, he'd pulled equity out and sunk it into his business. The current mortgage was twice what the house was probably worth. And the loan terms were brutal, high interest, balloon payment due in 8 months. I checked foreclosure listings. Then I checked Dad's business accounts, accessible through public filings. Every number pointed in one direction. Collapse. One missed payment would trigger everything. The bank would move fast. And based on the payment history I was seeing, Dad was already 30 days late. That house, the symbol of his power and control, was balanced on a knife's edge. I closed my laptop and stared at the wall. Part of me felt vindicated. Another part felt hollow. This was still my childhood home, still the place where Mom had braided my hair and taught me to make tamales at Christmas. But it was also the place where Dad threw me away when I wouldn't let him ruin me. In April, my promotion became official. Assistant Director of Compliance, Henderson Financial Group, Regional Division. I had a corner office with windows. My salary jumped 30%. And my responsibilities now included oversight of compliance audits across 12 states. Dad had called this job cute office work when I'd first started 6 years ago. He'd laughed when I said I wanted to work in finance. Real work means getting your hands dirty, Elena, not pushing papers. Now I was pushing papers that determined whether businesses stayed open or shut down. I was reviewing practices that could trigger federal investigations. I had access to financial records that most people never saw. My first week in the new role, my assistant brought me a stack of folders. These are the firms flagged for quarterly review. Thought you'd want to get ahead of the schedule. I opened the first folder. Standard stuff. Second folder, same thing. Third folder. I stopped breathing. Morales Building Solutions. Flagged for suspicious financial activity. Multiple complaints from subcontractors. Inconsistent reporting. Possible fraud indicators. The audit was scheduled for May. 6 weeks away. I sat there for 10 minutes, just staring at Dad's company name typed across the top of the page. The universe had a sense of humor. Or maybe it just had a sense of justice. I disclosed everything immediately. That was protocol, and I'd built my career on following rules, even when they were hard. I wrote a detailed memo explaining my relationship to the company owner, the circumstances of our estrangement, and why I couldn't lead this audit personally. My boss called me into her office that afternoon. Elena, I appreciate your transparency. You've handled this exactly right. She assigned the audit to another team, but asked me to serve as a consultant, providing background context without direct involvement. I'd submit what I knew, then step back and let the process work. That night, I pulled out everything Troy had given me. The forged signatures, the shell companies, the double billing. I organized it all into a clear, documented report. Then I encrypted it, attached it to an email, and sent it to the audit team leader. Subject line: Supplemental information, Morales Building Solutions review. I didn't mention Dad. I didn't add personal commentary. I just presented facts, dates, and documents. Then I went for a long walk and tried not to think about what I'd just set in motion. The investigation would happen whether I helped or not, but my information would make it faster and more thorough. I wasn't attacking my father. I was protecting everyone he might hurt next. Marcus called at 11 p.m. on a Thursday. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Elena? His voice cracked. I need help. In the background, I heard Dad shouting. Something crashed. Marcus was breathing hard, like he'd been running. What's going on? Collectors keep calling. My credit score dropped 200 points. I'm getting notices about debts I don't remember. Dad said it was temporary. That business stuff would work itself out, but he stopped. Did you know? Is that why you left? My chest tightened. What did you sign, Marcus? Everything. He said you abandoned us, that you were selfish, that family sticks together. So I signed everything he put in front of me. Without reading it, silence. Then, quietly, he's my dad. I trusted him. I closed my eyes. Marcus was 23, barely out of college. He'd been Dad's backup plan when I refused to play along. The loyal son who'd replace me was actually the sacrificial one. Send me copies of what you signed. Every document. Can you do that without Dad knowing?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can. Marcus? Don't sign anything else. No matter what he says. The line went quiet. Then, he used me, didn't he? I didn't answer. I didn't need to. Marcus already knew. The documents arrived the next morning. 47 pages of financial devastation. I spread them across my kitchen table and felt sick. Marcus had cosign loans. Guaranteed debts. His name was attached to 3 shell companies that existed only to shuffle money around. Every single agreement put him on the hook while protecting Dad from liability. The loyal son, routine had been a trap. And Marcus had walked right into it. I calculated his total exposure. If everything collapsed, and it was collapsing, Marcus would owe over $200,000. His credit was already destroyed. Legal action would follow. He could face charges for debts he didn't even understand he'd taken on. Dad had done to Marcus exactly what he'd tried to do to me. I made copies of everything and added it to my files. Then I started researching debt relief options and legal protections for financial fraud victims. Marcus would need help. Real help. But Dad had made his choices. I drafted an email. Simple, direct, no emotions. I outlined what I'd found in Marcus's documents. I explained the legal exposure. I warned him to come clean before investigators found it themselves. I hit send at midnight. His response came 6 minutes later. Stay out of my life. I deleted his contact and never looked back. The audit began in May. I wasn't part of the field team, but I received updates. Bank records were subpoenaed. Employees were interviewed. Documents were cross-referenced against tax filings and contract records. Every day, the picture got darker. In June, federal authorities froze 3 accounts tied to Morales Building Solutions. Construction projects stopped mid-build. Workers walked off sites without pay. Subcontractors filed mechanics liens against every property Dad owned. The house, my childhood home, was officially at risk. I heard about it through Marcus, who texted me from a library computer. Dad says this is your fault, that you're destroying him on purpose. I didn't respond. What could I say? I'd given Dad a chance to fix things himself. He'd chosen pride over honesty. By July, Dad was telling relatives I was vindictive, that I'd fabricated evidence, that I was punishing him for being a strict parent. Aunt Gloria posted a long Facebook rant about ungrateful children. Cousins I hadn't seen in years sent me angry messages. I blocked them all. I didn't defend myself. I didn't argue. I just let the auditors, the banks, and the legal system do their jobs. Documents don't lie. Numbers don't have grudges. And truth doesn't need my help. In August, a court summons arrived. A hearing to determine the future of Morales Building Solutions and associated financial irregularities. I was listed as a witness, not a defendant. I hired a lawyer anyway. Better safe than sorry. The hearing was scheduled for late September in a downtown courthouse that smelled like old wood and stress. I wore my work clothes, a navy suit, simple jewelry, professional, but not flashy. Dad arrived with his attorney, a man with slicked hair and an expensive watch. Marcus came separately, looking lost and scared. He sat 3 rows behind Dad, not next to him. I took a seat on the opposite side of the courtroom. When Dad saw me, his expression hardened. He leaned over to whisper to his lawyer, pointing in my direction. The lawyer shook his head. Whatever Dad wanted, it wasn't going to happen. The judge entered. We all stood. And then, for the first time in over a year, my father and I were in the same room with nowhere to hide. The judge reviewed preliminary evidence, bank statements, forged documents, witness testimony from Troy and 6 other former employees. The paper trail was overwhelming. Then the judge said the words that made my heart stop. I'd like to hear from Marcus Morales. Marcus walked to the witness stand like he was heading to his own execution. His hands shook as he placed them on the Bible. His voice cracked when he swore to tell the truth. The prosecutor started gently. Marcus, can you describe your relationship with your father? He's my dad. I always looked up to him. And did he ever ask you to sign financial documents? Marcus nodded. Lots of times. Did you read them before signing? A long pause. No. Why not? Marcus looked at Dad. Then at me. Then at his hands. Because he said family trusts each other. That Elena left because she stopped trusting us. He said if I was loyal, I'd sign. Did your father explain what you were signing? He said it was business stuff. Temporary. That everything would be fine. The prosecutor pulled out a document. Is this your signature? Marcus looked. His face went pale. Yes. Do you know what this document is? No. It's a personal guarantee for a $200,000 loan. If the business defaults, you're personally responsible. Did your father explain that? Marcus's voice dropped to a whisper. No. I watched Dad's face. He wasn't looking at Marcus. He was staring at the table, jaw clenched, fingers drumming. The prosecutor continued for 20 more minutes. Each question revealed more manipulation, more pressure, more lies. By the end, Marcus was crying. When it was over, Dad didn't comfort him. He just looked away, like Marcus had betrayed him instead of the other way around. The judge took a 15-minute recess. I stepped outside for air. Marcus followed me. "I'm sorry," he said. "For everything. For taking your room. For believing him. For not asking questions." I looked at him, really looked at him. He'd lost weight. His eyes had dark circles. His confidence was gone. "You were used, Marcus. Just like he tried to use me." "How did you know? How did you see it coming?" I thought about that night in the driveway, the documents I'd refused to sign, the year I'd spent rebuilding myself. I learned to trust my gut over someone else's words, even when those words came from family. We stood there in the courthouse hallway, two kids who'd been thrown into the same fire by the same man. "What happens now?" Marcus asked. "The truth happens, and then we figure out what comes next." When we returned to the courtroom, the judge had made a decision. She issued an interim ruling, all accounts frozen pending full investigation. Dad was barred from conducting business under his current company structure. Restitution hearings would follow. And the house, that symbol of power and control, was seized pending resolution. Dad stood up, so fast his chair fell backward. His lawyer grabbed his arm, whispering urgently. But Dad's face said everything. He'd lost control, and he knew it. 2 weeks later, the locks on the family home were changed. Orange notices appeared on the windows. The driveway where Dad threw my suitcase sat empty except for dead leaves. I drove by once just to see it. The lawn was overgrown. The porch light was off. The place looked abandoned, even though legally it was just in transition. Mrs. Patterson next door waved at me. I waved back. She'd seen everything that night. The shouting, the suitcase, my car pulling away. Now she was watching the house go quiet. My phone buzzed. Dad's number. I'd unblocked it after the hearing, not because I wanted to talk, but because avoiding reality doesn't make it disappear. The voicemail was short. "Elena, I need to see you. Please." I listened 3 times before deciding to respond. We met at a neutral location, a park bench near the river, public enough to feel safe. Dad looked smaller than I remembered. His shoulders hunched. His hair had more gray. His hands twisted a paper coffee cup like it might break. "I never meant to hurt you," he said. I didn't respond immediately. I watched ducks glide across the water, wondering what hurt meant to him. "You threw me out of your house because I wouldn't let you ruin me financially. That wasn't accidental. That was a choice. I was desperate. You were manipulative. There's a difference." We sat in silence for a long time. Dad kept starting sentences and stopping them. Finally, he said, "I thought I was protecting the family. The business was struggling. I needed help. You needed a scapegoat. When I wouldn't be it, you used Marcus instead." He flinched. Marcus was willing. Marcus was young and trusting. You exploited that. Dad's jaw tightened. I saw the flash of anger, the same look he'd had that night in the driveway. But this time, he couldn't throw me out. He couldn't control me. He was just a man on a park bench, facing consequences. "What do you want from me?" he asked quietly. "Nothing. I don't want your money. I don't want your apology. I don't want you to fix this for me because you didn't break it." "Then why did you agree to meet?" I turned to face him fully. "Because you're still my father. And I needed you to understand that love doesn't mean letting someone destroy you. I can care about you and still protect myself. Those things aren't opposites." His eyes got wet. He looked away fast. "So that's it? We're done. We're different. I'm not the daughter who signs without reading anymore. And you're not the father I thought you were." I stood up. Dad stayed on the bench, staring at the river. I walked back to my car without looking back. And for the first time in a year, I felt completely at peace. I helped Marcus, not Dad. The distinction mattered. I connected Marcus with a lawyer who specialized in financial fraud cases. Together, they built an argument that Marcus had been coerced and misled. His age, lack of financial literacy, and the family pressure were all documented. Over 3 months, Most of Marcus's debts were restructured or forgiven. His credit would take years to recover, but he wasn't facing bankruptcy. He got a job at a warehouse, moved into a small apartment, and started rebuilding. We had coffee once a month. Not as siblings playing family, but as two people who'd survived the same storm. Dad called Marcus constantly. Apologies mixed with blame, regret mixed with justification. Marcus eventually stopped answering. I can't trust him anymore, Marcus told me over coffee. Every time we talk, he tries to make me the bad guy for testifying. You told the truth. That's not betrayal. Try telling him that. I didn't offer advice. Marcus had to figure out his own boundaries. But I was there when he needed someone who understood. Meanwhile, the legal process ground forward. More hearings. More evidence. More financial unraveling. Dad's company was officially dissolved. His business license was suspended. He faced fines but no prison time, white-collar consequences for white-collar crimes. In November, the house was scheduled for auction. The bank wanted to recover what it could from the property. Foreclosure proceedings moved faster than I expected. I received a notification because my name was still listed in old records as a resident. The auction date was set for December 10th. I didn't plan to go. What would be the point? But the morning of the auction, I woke up and knew I needed to see it. Not to reclaim anything. Not to gloat. Just to witness the end. The courthouse steps were cold. About 15 people showed up, real estate investors mostly, looking for a deal. Dad wasn't there. Marcus wasn't there. Just strangers with clipboards and bidding cards. The auctioneer described the property. 4 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, mature landscaping, needs cosmetic work. The bidding started low. It climbed slowly. Someone won at 60% of what the house was worth 2 years ago. Gavel down. Sold. I stood there after everyone left, staring at the courthouse steps. That house, the symbol of Dad's power, the place where I'd been thrown away, was gone. Erased. Reset to 0. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Call me when you get this. It's about your mother. Teresa Santos, estate attorney. My heart stopped. I called immediately. Teresa Santos had kind eyes and a firm handshake. We met at her office downtown, in a building I'd walked past 100 times without knowing it held answers I'd been searching for. Your mother established a trust before she died, Teresa explained. It was meant to be released to you on your 30th birthday, but there were complications with the executor. What kind of complications? Your father was listed as the trustee. He was supposed to notify you and facilitate the transfer. He never did. I sat back hard in the chair. What? Teresa slid a folder across the desk. Inside were bank statements, legal documents, and a handwritten letter. Mom's handwriting. My vision blurred. The trust contains approximately $97,000. Your mother saved it over many years. She wanted you to have independence, education funds, and security. She specifically noted that the money should never be used for your father's business ventures. I opened the letter with shaking hands. Mom's words jumped off the page. Elena, my smart girl, by the time you read this, I'll be gone. But I want you to know that you're strong enough to stand on your own. This money is yours. Build the life you want, not the life someone else needs. I love you. Always. Mom. Tears dropped onto the paper. I'd spent a year thinking I was completely alone, that I'd lost everything. But Mom had been protecting me even after she was gone. Why didn't Dad tell me? Teresa's expression hardened. Legally, I can't speculate. But the timing of his financial troubles began around when this trust matured. He'd tried to hide my inheritance, to keep me dependent, to make me desperate enough to sign anything. With the trust money, I had choices. Real choices. I could have paid off debt, bought a car, taken a vacation. Instead, I did something Mom would have loved. I launched a consulting practice. Independent financial advocacy. My focus? Helping people recognize and escape financial manipulation, especially within families. I worked with individuals trapped by cosign loans they didn't understand. Adult children whose parents had destroyed their credit. Spouses who discovered secret debts. People like Marcus. People like I'd almost become. The work was hard. Every client's story echoed pieces of my own. But it was also healing. I was turning my worst experience into something that helped others. Word spread. Referrals came from lawyers, therapists, and debt counselors. Within 6 months, I had a waiting list. Within 9 months, I hired an assistant. Dad heard about it. Of course he did. In a city this size, word travels. One afternoon, he showed up at my office. I was in the middle of a consultation when my assistant knocked. Elena, your father's here. The client looked confused. I stood up. Excuse me for just a moment. Dad stood in the waiting room, hands in his pockets, looking at the degrees on my wall. When he saw me, he almost smiled. Almost. Can we talk? We went to the coffee shop next door. Dad ordered black coffee. I ordered tea. We sat by the window, watching people pass on the sidewalk. You've done well, he said finally. The business, the reputation. I'm proud of you. The words should have meant something. A year ago, they might have. Now they just felt hollow. Thank you. Elena, I need you to understand. Everything I did, I thought I was protecting the family. The company was my father's legacy. Losing it meant losing everything. You didn't lose it, Dad. You destroyed it. By lying. By manipulating people who trusted you. By choosing shortcuts over honesty. He stared into his coffee. I know that now. Do you? Because you're here asking me to understand your choices. But you've never once asked about mine. You never asked why I said no. You never asked what it felt like to be thrown away for refusing to be your safety net. His face crumpled. I'm sorry. I am so sorry. I believed him. That was the strange part. I believed he felt regret. But regret isn't the same as change. I forgive you, I said quietly. But I don't trust you. And I won't pretend things can go back to how they were. So what happens now? I finish my tea. Now we're different people who share a past. That's all. Dad tried to stay in touch after that. Birthday texts, holiday cards, occasional voicemails that I sometimes answered and sometimes didn't. We were cordial, polite, but we weren't close. Marcus built his own relationship with Dad, separate from mine. Sometimes it worked. Sometimes it didn't. That was Marcus's choice, and I respected it. I focused on my work and my own growth. I got a dog, a rescue named Luna, who slept at the foot of my bed and reminded me that loyalty doesn't require manipulation. I bought a small house with the trust money as a down payment, something that was mine and only mine. On the 1-year anniversary of being kicked out, I drove past the old neighborhood. A new family lived in the house now. Kids' bikes in the driveway. Fresh paint on the shutters. The place looked loved again. I didn't feel sad. I felt free. That night, I wrote in my journal something I'd started during the hardest months. The last entry said, "A year ago, I thought losing my family meant losing everything. Now I know it meant finding myself." I closed the journal and looked around my little house. Luna snored by the couch. My consulting business calendar was full for the next month. I had plans with friends for the weekend. I'd built this life from nothing. From a motel room and a cracked promotion certificate. From anger and fear and determination. And it was mine. 2 years after that night in the driveway, I presented at a financial literacy conference. The topic, recognizing and preventing familial financial abuse. The room was packed, therapists, lawyers, social workers, and survivors all wanting to learn. I told my story, not for sympathy, but as a case study. I explained the warning signs, the manipulation tactics, the legal protections people needed to know about. I shared resources and referral networks. During the Q&A session, a woman in the back raised her hand. How did you move past the anger? How did you forgive? I thought carefully before answering. I forgave because holding on to anger was like drinking poison and expecting someone else to feel sick. But forgiveness didn't mean reconciliation. It meant releasing the expectation that the past could have been different. After the presentation, that same woman approached me. Thank you. My mother did something similar to me last year. I've been struggling with whether I'm a bad daughter for protecting myself. I gave her my card. You're not bad. You're wise. And you deserve support. She started crying. We talked for 20 minutes right there in the conference hall. By the end, she'd scheduled a consultation with my practice. That night, I got an email from the conference organizer, requests for me to speak at 4 more events. My message was resonating. I was turning my pain into purpose. And it felt like the greatest victory of all. Today, I live in a world I built from scratch. My consulting practice helps 50 to 75 clients a year. My relationships are based on honesty and mutual respect, not obligation or guilt. I have boundaries that protect me instead of walls that isolate me. Dad and I exchange occasional emails. He's working part-time now, managing a small repair shop. He'll never have the big company again, and I think he's finally made peace with that. We're not close, but we're not enemies either. Marcus is thriving. He finished community college and landed a job at a credit union, ironically helping other people manage their finances.
He met someone.
He's happy. We text regularly, real conversations about real life. The house was never the point. I realized that standing in my own home, the one I chose and paid for, and filled with things that matter to me. The point was my freedom, my ability to say no, my right to protect myself without apology. On the anniversary of that terrible night, I don't mourn what I lost. I celebrate what I found. Myself. My voice. My strength. My life on my terms. When people ask if I regret how things turned out, I tell them the truth. I regret that it had to happen that way. But I don't regret the outcome. Because the woman who stands here now, independent, clear-eyed, unafraid, is someone I'm proud to be. And no house, no title, no family approval could ever be worth more than that.